I do know that we have our Josh Maxwell. He is joining us live tonight from, I believe, the watch party for Jimmy Granberry over at Vernon. So Josh, talk to us. How's it going over there?
Leslie, you are correct. I am at the watch party here at Vernon's, where you can see a very substantial support for D.A. Granberry. Now, one thing I really do want to talk to you guys about is that substantial lead that he has over Democratic candidate Terry Shamsi. Now, I really do want to talk about the advantages that both candidates have. Now, both men do boast vast legal backgrounds that both go over 3 decades. The two men even see similar issues that they would like to resolve in the district attorney's office. I didn't really see any conflict or any different issues that either one of them had any differing views on, but I do want to start with Republican incumbent Jimmy Granberry, as he did say that he does feel that he has the advantage in terms of already being in office. Now, as you mentioned earlier, Granberry was sworn in last year after former district attorney Mark Gonzalez announced his resignation, who at time decided to run for Senate. Now, another thing to note about Granberry is that he also has felony prosecutor experience. Now, that's something that Shamsi does not have, focusing more on that defensive law. Now, that does give Granberry an advantage because he is able to see cases from both vantage points. Now, he does have a tough on crime campaign stance, and I want to touch on that because he did voice to me earlier before this watch party that one thing that he intends to do if he does win is that he wants to recruit more lawyers to the area. Now, another thing that kind of boils into that is needing more money. In fact, when he spoke to me, he said that was the primary thing he was going to work towards. The last time I spoke to Granberry in an interview, he told me that the district attorney's office was down 12 lawyers. Now, that did require that lawyers had to shuffle, and it often ended up in lawyers having to work overtime that they weren't necessarily getting paid for. He also said that over the bridge in San Pat County, they also had more competitive rates that made it a bit difficult to keep and retain talent. So Granberry also told me in a past interview that he makes up for that by trying to have a more team environment and making sure that his employees are valued. Now, leaning on more to Shamsi, he does say that he wants the community to lean more on to his extensive experience in criminal defense law and administration. Now, another thing that Shamsi does want to focus on, as his opponent Granberry, is focusing more on the rising cases within juveniles. In a past story, I did speak with the juvenile probation officer, who did tell me that he is seeing a rise in juvenile crimes, some even involving firearms. He even told me in that interview that they've even had to double the amount of juveniles that they've had to commit, in layman's terms, basically sending them one step closer to adult prison. Now, that is a last resort, but that definitely speaks to the rise and need to kind of really crack down on juvenile crime, which both Shamsi and Granberry are working on. Now, I do want to introduce D.A. Granberry's campaign manager, Brandy. Now, Brandy, kind of just tell me a little bit about your support for D.A. Granberry and what makes him the best candidate for the role.
Well, I think starting first and foremost, our governor, Greg Abbott, when Mark Gonzalez stepped down last year, there were many candidates that went through a very long and arduous vetting process by our governor up in Austin. And ultimately, Jimmy Granberry was chosen by Governor Greg Abbott to be our new district attorney. I think he brings just an amazing wealth of knowledge. He actually started in the district attorney's office originally when he started his career, so he's kind of come full circle. And one of the things he really wants to focus on too is like the newer lawyers and prosecutors that are coming in there, training them, and he's even brought in a bunch of retired lawyers to kind of oversee those new attorneys and educate them and help them to become better prosecutors in his office. I think he's done some amazing things since he's been in office. They've done a great job at clearing a lot of the cases out, which ultimately saves the citizens of this county hundreds of thousands of dollars, because we don't have those people sitting in our jails and costing the taxpayers money. So I think that as a fiscally responsible person, he's really done a lot in that area for our county. And I think he has a lot more amazing things to come. And one thing I really want to point out is that after tonight, he will become the very first elected Republican district attorney in the history of Nueces County. And I think that is pretty amazing and huge for our county.
And to piggyback off of that, do you feel that his appointment by Governor Abbott kind of plays a part in his noticeable lead above Shamsi?
I I think it may have played a part in the primary when it was, more of a Republican race. I think it played a part then, but now with the actual election, I really don't think it played as much of an effect. I think Jimmy really has across the board people voting for him, which I think is important in that position. Even though we run partisan races, he represents the entire county, and I think he's going to do an amazing job with that because he really he has his finger on the pulse of what goes on here because he's worked on the defense side and now he's back on the prosecution, and I think that's amazing because he kind of knows what games those defense lawyers are going to bring into the courtroom, and he's got that knowledge under his belt.
All right, thank you so much, Brandy and Rudy, Leslie. We are definitely going to keep you guys informed on this race as those numbers and results keep turning in. But for now, reporting live from Vernon's, Josh Maxwell, 3 News. Now back to you guys at the desk.